Sort of.
Anybody on there?
No. Okay, yep, they're bringing over another laptop. We'll switch over to that in a few minutes. But you'll at least have, what's recording it online.
.603, and we'll get started on the 3rd of November. Started the budget. Some of these changes, I just want to know some of the other departments. Some of the changes the chief has are less in our two budgets, because we actually, my plan was to go through it with everybody first. But I remember talking about last night, didn't have enough time to go through every department first, so we did start to get through some of the chief's budget, and then we got broken up for our meeting. But then the rest, yeah. That's why I sound. Right, talk about that as they go. All right, chief, plan here.
You're good. I mean, it is what it is. I mean, you know what, I tried to explain to some of my fellow department heads that our budget is 90% actual personnel. I mean, we got one of the biggest departments in the city, so when you look at contractual benefits, that's where the money is, which is beyond my control. Our operating budget, which we actually can control a little bit for purchases, is the last I looked, and I didn't do the math this year, it's like 300,000. Maybe push it forward, with cars, gas, vehicle repair, taking 2/3 of it. So there's very little really in our budget that we control. There are some cuts that they're not great cuts that are going to impact us that we're working on. I do want to note that in, I'll tell you, it's line 195, 520 operating equipment. Nope. 194. 5,000 office equipment rated 5,000. I have $8,000 in that budget line that I had earmarked in my budget request for radar units. But our radar units are not down. We just ordered 2. Keep the location going. The only thing I'd like to do is earmark that for lockers or locker rooms. We got them there a few weeks ago. We're using what's left of our buildings and ground units, about 6 lockers. They're a total of $3,600. 6 lockers. We'll remove the old ones and install the new one. As I explained to the mayor, there's a number of lockers down there, which I think were put in when this building was built, that don't lock. Yeah. So we have colors in there, we have things that. Wow. I think that would be a good morale boost for the manpower, and it's also safety, because steel parts off the ones that remove, the ones that not replaced are, and then we'll just keep the rotation going. These lockers can be removed, you know, if we do find a new home or revamp in here and move the locker room vacant.
Paul, when there's a guy who works midnights, his locker is broken, so he steps in the daytime, his runs in the lock.
Okay. spot all the time, then we never know who.
Some Yahoo,
Huh?
some Yahoo message with a spoiler.
I think I'm just gonna call a second phone, say you beat up, Palmer. But that's the only thing, I mean, it's not really in the budget that. Why you marked that 8,000, that I wanna be upfront with you about it. The other stuff, you know, we tried to meet again with the mayor the other day on these cuts. But I met with Cheryl and she explained how it was done and, you know, about money being left over and she's gonna do encumbrances and stuff. I got nothing.
Paul, I know the mayor, we talked about a little bit about last night about the body cam. Possible body cam in the future, if you're looking at, if there's no funding for it.
No, I don't have money for it. Body cameras is a major expense. It's in three different ways. The equipment is, but it's not the biggest. Storage is a huge expense of the body. And that's the recurring annual expense. Also, there is policy and there are mandates that you have body. That there are periodic checks of video footage. So like if I'm out there for 8 hours with the body, then somebody has to spot check my camera footage, make sure that, you know, I'm doing things right, things like that. And then if somebody files a FOIL, somebody files a personnel complaint, now you have that week, it goes in, with all that. Looks for it. There's an incident. You know, there's gonna be more than one option. More often. They like chicken play. Get it. That's for. You're probably. At least. Look at it, and for starting there, you have other things. And all that has to be looked at and has to be searched, has to be downloaded. And that's all fine, so. That could require person in and of themselves, you know, an IT person, just to do video, because we have videos in the fog, which we try to keep up with. We had videos on Main Street and in the parking lot. You know, we're not doing spot reviews on these, you know, we pull them for incidents of an accident, or if we have a larceny or something on Main Street, we'll pull it. Or if there's, you know, an incident where our people are at and the cameras and the bars are recording, we have to pull that stuff out. We have the sergeants doing that. But with body cameras, I think the workload would just be far too excessive. Now, if we could partner with the county,
Which is, that was, I had that conversation earlier.
because
So now Cornell, we have this factory for this back office. We just read his body. Now runs into the DA's office, so it's more than just, okay, you also get the login, case number with body cam. You know, state of letters, the 180 Ks, depends on what it is. We obviously, in fact, they actually had a lot more than just.
if we can partner with the county, great, because I know sheriff is looking at the same body cam as us. We're looking at WatchGuard, which matches our in-car videos, so that they would all, we could link the same system. And I think there's actually a way, when we talk to them, that we could do like a timeline kind of thing. There's a program where, you know, based on the timeline, okay, this video is playing and then this video, and we piece it all together so somebody can watch the incident.
Sure.
I don't know how he manages to sort this stuff.
Memorization.
I don't know how he's getting cars for all this.
Yeah, it's just, you know, sometimes you forget to turn on your camera, you know, it's like, oh shit, you know, it's a big case. You know, things like, oh, you know, it's a lot more than just, you know, And I was again, I'm the union president there, and I was in the policy making phase. But you also got to remember that if you're going to do this policy, if the policies always got a policy, if you do this, it's not just for transparency of the officers, it's also the public. If the public files a false complaint, it goes both ways.
Yeah.
And you got to prosecute that.
And that's what I look at is, I get calls all the time or. Clarify.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, and there are some calls where it's, you really can't, you can interview everybody, and then it's like, who do you believe kind of thing. But, the stories that I have read, and other chiefs and stuff, body cams, technically, more likely than not, they will vindicate an officer in a civilian complaint, but it's not exactly that way. So, and we've investigated enough civilian complaints against our officers on the day that they go for a traffic court or something that, our officers did something wrong, trying to get a deal or something. It's, I'm not opposed to them. We've had a policy since 2017 when we tested some body worn cameras. Just never have had the funding. And grants are very competitive. We just got turned down for our grant. The good thing is we just got a second grant on body ballistic vest that I'm going to present at the next council meeting. It's only like $4,000, but it's $4,000 more than we had. So, but as far as the budget,
Let's just hit a couple highlights. We got a few minutes here in your budget of that. I mean, some of the budgetary numbers, it's in and out numbers. We just moved the part-time officer. That's on his school. We moved him to a different spot. If that changes, that number changes, then we'll just amend the budget at that time if we're retiring. Do that. 3 cars in here. We're hoping real close to that. Be real close to that based on the new numbers. Obviously, we're always trying to keep an eye on overtime. Trying to keep that at bay. But hopefully, with new officers and coming in, we'll get them filled, and hopefully, it looks to be some are retiring early. Chief and I talked about maybe being a little more proactive to doing something to try to get them in the academy ahead of time. Because if we hire them at the academy, get them in at the academy rate, by saving that, we'll get that expedited, so then we're not paying that overtime to cover them after. So it looks like what we're maybe looking at 2 retired possibly this year.
definitely have 2 retiring. I've got letters of intent from Officer Bush, who's going to leave. I thought at the end of March, but he's going to leave at the beginning of March. And Sergeant Rollins, who will leave in mid-June. He bought back his military time, so he's leaving. So yes, the mayor and I talked, if we could get people into academy and get them trained, get them at least in the training process, that minimizes the amount of time that we're short those people. But with the extra people that the council graciously gave us, right now we are at our old staffing level. We have 2 in FTL. Once they are out of FTO at the end of the year, end of December, we will be at our old number. We just hired a phase 1, so we put him through phase 2. He's in FTO. He will be on his own in February, the beginning of February. So that'll be our +1. We're looking to hire somebody in November, mid-November, and somebody in December. They will be they'll be our +2, +3 that the council gave us. And they will go to academy in January. So once again, by midsummer, they'll be back. FTO and they'll be on there. So our staffing shortages should be a thing of the past, and particularly if we can get ahead of these other retirements and put them into academy in March.
There's a part I just want to bring to everybody's attention too. If you just look at the personal services line, which is 181, you look at the cost increase revised, and then you drop down and look at some of the other numbers. we've actually dropped in longevity, which is so 181 and 182, which is on page 4.
Services. 182 is longevity. Actual.
In 2020, 2021, yeah, I don't know what that is. I think that line was maybe added at that year. It wasn't put in. And that's the problem with some of these shell games that we keep doing, and it's frustrating to me, is we keep doing a lot of shell games, and very frustrating to me, so we're trying to keep those organized so we at least know what they are. But I think what I wanted to just point out and highlight on the personal services part, you look at the longevity, and I don't know if you caught it yet last night on the fire, when we took out a lot of those stipends, so that really works that into part of that salary. So working that into that and doing that and filling those shifts, we should be able to budget better and be more efficient. Ultimately, I'd like to see, not that I want to take away the overtime, but the overtime go away to a certain extent, because that's burnout rate too. But there is still overtime needed for Portico, other expense, but just the general budgeting time to do a cover our shifts. We're not paying overtime. That's a big savings. So I think the overtime budget's high. Anticipate this year we'll have a little bit of leftovers, and we're going to give them to them, give them back to them, and try to roll that in to try to, again, trying to make these budgets, all these departments work together to say, don't have to burn it. You don't have to use it. And that's what I'm watching now, from now to the end of the year, to make sure these departments are not burning the money out just so they can use it. Trying to keep that.
We've always had well, at least for the past 10 years while I was deputy chief, last year, we had a history of, we would always turn in encumbrances to Lori. We had to turn them in. So, we had money left. We were looking to roll it over into the next year. And, the council has always been gracious to give it back to us. So it helped with some of the purchases that, and kept the budget down. So.
DWI patrols, is it still funded?
Yeah.
Used to be just like 20 grand a year.
DWI funding is decreasing over the years due to fines. The fines are much lower. But the fact is, we will have extra DWI funding. So we are now putting out, like on Halloween, we put out DWI from 3 to 7, 7 to 11, and then 11 to 3. Doing that on some Fridays and Saturdays, trying to catch like a happy hour. But we thought it was important on Halloween with all the kids being out, try to catch that and make sure that if there was a problem out there, plus it was an extra car out there in case there was a problem. So we are using that more effectively and trying to switch it up, because I think people pattern us and they're like, okay, the DWI is from 11 to 3. We go out, and as long as we're out of town by 10, we're okay. So we're trying to catch that crew that might be out there drinking.
As of late, we've had a little bit of an uptick.
Yeah. And we got some young officers that are very aggressive out there. They're doing a good job very well. We have at the department, it's a DWI list. You have to perform to get on it. If you go out and you're not making DWIs, you're not getting the overtime. So it's an incentive to go out there and find the DWIs to stay on this rotation.
One of the new guys, but I think it's almost 3 weeks.
Three.
3 weeks in a row.
Jason,
Yeah. Any other highlights you think we should identify? I don't think of any right offhand.
All the education is still 5,000 for the patrols if they want to go to college.
yes.
That's always been that way, right? You never increase it all.
No, it's contractual, it's 5,000. The union really gave up a huge bone years ago that there was the educational was unlimited. Anybody that wanted to go to college, it was paid for. There was no limit. They gave it up and capped it at 5,000, which I was like, you just gave away the golden goose. That's back when I was in the union. And there's a $4,000 line for independent classes. So if you want an officer wants to learn Spanish, we'll pay for them to speak, to learn to speak Spanish, but they do it on their own time. If they want to go to a street survival school or a tactical school, or they want to, learn how to do something else, we can pay for it out of those individuals. They have to write a letter to the chief, apply for it, get permission, go on their own time. That was cut in the mayor's budget a little bit, but when I talked to Cheryl, she says there's money this year that she's gonna roll back into it to make it up, so I'm gonna go, because that is a contractual item too. She goes, but you don't use it. I said, but it just gets rolled every year, so she says, no, we will roll that back. So we're good with that, because a lot of people don't use it, but now we have young people. So I think they'll be taking more advantage of that. The degree program in December, we will have one of our officers graduating with a bachelor's degree from Penn State in criminal justice. We've been paying the tuition, and she will get a stipend for a one-time stipend in December. So that's Melissa. Pardon? Yeah. Yep. And she did a paper, about the PD a while ago for a class. She let me approve it before she sent it. So. Good article, and I mean, sometimes online classes are harder than sitting in class and taking it. Because that's how I got my master's degree is online. SUNY Empire. You do a lot of reading, a lot of writing, and then, you have to go to, see your professor like quarterly and stuff like that. So it's a lot of work, and it's a lot of self-initiated time management and stuff. So kudos to her.
Chief, I got a quick question for you.
Sure.
Crossing guards.
Yep.
So is the increase basically contractual from 2022 to 2023?
Yeah, that's, crossing guards would all be contractual, including their allotment and stuff. And there might be a little bit extra there. We've cut a couple. We're looking to maybe trim a couple more because they have to turn in sheets on how many kids are crossing in the morning and in the afternoon. We periodically look at those, and it's like, last year we had a couple crossings where they were crossing one child in the morning and maybe two in the evening. And we were like, why are we doing this crossing for three? So we reached out to the family. The one child crossing in the morning was crossing with their mother. So the mother was walking, so it's like, why are we there? And then in the afternoon, the parents said, those kids cross that street all weekend long, going back and forth. They can do it without you. So we don't just eliminate it. We talk to the people that were crossing, we reach out to the families. So we eliminated some of those, which, will eventually be a cost savings. So we're constantly evaluating.
that contract's up for negotiation.
It'd be nice, we've talked for years about the school taking it over. Maybe with this superintendent, they would have it.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Appreciate it. Can I get a?
Yeah, thank you.
Thank
Without
you.
Any changes, can I get a motion to accept? As presented? Okay. Michael? Billy and Tom? All those in favor?
Aye.
Thanks, Chief. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
I'll go home, take care of it now.
Know your candy bag?
No. Just don't touch the food when I brought you.
That's why they didn't.
Huh?
That's why they didn't touch your budget.
I'm frugal.
He's cheap.
Starts on page 7.
You need a sheet? Oh, Andy's got an extra one. Right next to you. You got an extra
No,
sheet?
he will, it's photographic memory.
No, I know what's gonna come.
Most of them give a presentation. That's what you want.
I offered to share
I
mine.
looked over at the one. I knew it wasn't gonna be a problem with that.
I think you'll have to use that, one, you know, that's the smaller version.
It's the itty bitty version.
Here.
It's in the hot seat.
All right, everyone.
Good evening.
Yep, there you go. All right, where would you folks like to start? I think our first line as you come to it, probably buildings and grounds 1620.
Page back, page should be page 6. Right? The administration's 5010 42103.
Building, we can start wherever you want. Buildings and grounds, I think it's page 3. And I'm not sure the format or how, if you guys want to line by line. or-
Yeah, typically, what we've been doing is either, go to the highlighted lines as line by line or whatever
Sure.
lines you want to go through, just to try to get a general understanding of what's happening.
An explanation.
And you guys are looking off the mayor's budget, correct?
Right.
Okay,
Well, we have
yeah, yeah.
yours and the
Yeah.
department and the mayor's beside each other.
Okay. I think, I mean, decreases of a couple grand here or there, like you get to the 1620 5405 line that went, looks like it's just a difference of 2,500 from 10 to 12. I think that those are not, unless you folks want to talk about them, I don't think that they're super relevant or not significant enough to warrant a huge big section. Buildings and grounds is pretty close. I think the only item that we really asked for that was of any substance was just, we put a bunch of money in for landscaping. And that got reduced, I think, to 3,500 instead of 35,000.
Why so much into landscaping?
We were looking to incorporate a program for landscaping that included City Hall, all the welcome to Cortland signs, Clinton Ave, the masonry structures on the Tapioca Bridge area from phase 1, and Courthouse Park on the Church Street side. The Marketplace Mall parking lot, gardens, CRT parking lot. We're looking to do something for pretty much everything multiple times a year.
And that was this is where I'm a hypocrite, but I tried, this is one of the incentive initiatives that I really wanted to get to happen. And, but decided that that was the first place I had to cut, so. But I'd still like to have it happen, so, but I don't have a solution to any more money from anyone else. So without having that, hopefully, you know, when end of the year comes around, if there's something around, we can shove it back into that. I mean, it would be one of those priorities. Obviously, any of these items we cut, I mean, I'm not gonna think that the department heads have put something in that we don't necessarily want or need, but we would try to get those priorities back, because I think that's an important factor.
And that was that, how we arrived at that, big 30. Yeah, 35,000 was, we asked just a local landscape vendor for just a written price. And we didn't get super detailed. We didn't put an RFP out. We just wanted to know how much that they thought that would cost. We didn't go to competitive bidding because we weren't at that point. And
Just
he,
budget.
yeah, just budget number. And I think he said $35,000. So,
One of the areas that really needs some attention is what the theater is.
yes,
By
yep. That has never done at any landscaping except for the little end on Fort Watson Street.
I see where somebody did some
Yeah.
kind of a
Yep.
little garden or
Yep.
type thing there. That's interesting, but it cut down.
Yes, exactly.
Nick,
Yes.
540701, the equipment repair armory,
Yep.
you lost $9,000 on that.
Yeah.
How much of an issue is that gonna be? For you?
Hopefully, that's not super impactful. The roof over there does have some issues, that we typically, not the large rubber roof that's only like
Few years.
Few years.
5 years ago.
I think it's more like 15, but, it's, the green part is a lot newer. The lower, portion that borders Wilson Place that's flat has been an ongoing issue. But I think we asked for 10 because we were having boiler problems that we just fixed in the last month. So hopefully that doesn't hit us too hard. The roof might be an issue, but we'll try to live with the allotments. And if it needs a new roof in the spring or something, I'll just ask if they're funding for it and we'll have a reason.
Boiler crowd, that was the one that we just went over to look at. We
Yep.
had to take a section out.
Yeah, so that was fixed, so
Yep.
that was the intent there. I thought maybe do that, and again, like we told all the other departments publicly, we're not gonna, you know, we're all in this as a team.
Sure.
If something's needed, you could come to us and we'll address it.
Yep.
Make sure it gets filled. You know, some of these things, you know, we had to best guess estimate. You know, we'll know by the first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, we'll make that adjustment, just as we always do. I just hate to create a number and then have to spend to that instead of the need first.
And then, of course, too, you know, the city has operated in a deficit for several years.
Sure.
Now we're in a fiscal stress category, so we gotta do something.
Sure.
We just have to.
The armory is just a tough place to cut back because we have tenants over there.
Yeah, so, yeah, and again, the hypocrite's gonna talk again. So the problem is our facilities are such dire need.
Sure.
Look at where we're at now, we'll get the fans going, because then the heat's been off all day, it just runs in the armory, and needs work, and city hall needs work, and fire hall needs work, and youth bureau, and DPW buildings and garage equipment. I said on a call today, which even just emphasizes even more, which you'll get a press release next week about, is, you know, I sit down with Moody's on the bond stuff, and like I said, we're a little bit less than, we're 10 times higher on our borrowing than other municipalities in the state, so we're 10 times higher. So what we had borrowed, so we're 9.8%, 7.8%, so that's gonna be a significant hit. We're gonna get, I bet you we'll get dropped, estimating based on the call afterwards, that will be dropped 3 rates on our rating is what we are. Because of our debt, because of our budget and our constitutional tax limit, So it's really we should really be increasing these lines. I think these $10,000 in the Army was probably incompetent in some aspects. But recognizing that, but we need to keep making those improvements. I would never do this in any other way if we had that option to do that. But without knowing every detail of every other line in the budget and every one of those shells, but buckets to know where those areas are and what can be or what can you get away with. How can you sit there and say your equipment's inadequate, the roads are inadequate, the buildings are inadequate, and we're gonna cut it. This was the hardest one to do, but I was out, gone through some of the evidence and so you're gonna see more of that and the same, and again, that's the department heads to talk about it, talk about what the concerns are and where the concerns are, and hopefully we get some kind of solution and resolution.
Folks have any other buildings and grounds related questions? I think the next one, if we go in order, is typically traffic, public safety, 3010.
Well, would we like to make a motion on buildings and grounds?
Okay, this line, I make a motion. Department here. Anybody else? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so we're. 163, I think on your number columns, everybody has them, right?
Yep. I think most of these lines we can live with. The one that stood out to me, that we typically might, if it gets funded under the 2023 mayor threshold of 44, we just may be at the table, later in the year is the 3010-5415. We do what we can with the contract, the professional services budget line. Obviously, you folks are probably aware stuff isn't getting any cheaper. Personal services, a lot of that is tree removals. And I believe that there was a little discrepancy because I think that the finance department thought we were going to have a lot of money left over this year in that budget line. And it was just a simple miscalculation because we have an invoice for almost $28,000 that was for this year's tree removal. And I think right now we have 24 and change in the account. So we're already over that budget line right now. So we asked for an additional $10,000. If there's traffic signals that need to be repaired, those services are more expensive. Parts and components are more expensive. And we just feel like what we've done in the past is we've robbed from the 3010-5405, the operating equipment line, and put it into professional services or vice versa. But the fact of the matter is road paint is up, sign blanks are up, electrical components are up. And in order to provide some level of service as far as signage, road striping, tree removals, and all that public safety stuff, we just asked for a little bit more. Just for you folks, public safety, I think I kind of outlined it, but public safety is signage, striping, trees, traffic signals, street lights. Yeah.
Tree removals, let me just ask you this is just for my own.
Sure.
benefit. So do you know now, last fourth quarter, what trees will need to be removed next year?
No.
It just happens.
We do the annual evaluation in April. Right when the trees start budding out, we go around with a certified harvest. In the middle of the winter, we can't really do it because you can't tell what's going to grow, what's not going to grow. He deems off the record what he believes is hazardous and that the city should step in and remove. Keep in mind, the trees between the sidewalk and the curb are homeowners' responsibility, homeowners' liability, and homeowner, they own them. We get involved when the trees between the sidewalk and the curb pose a hazard to vehicular or pedestrian traffic. They need to come out because they're gonna fall in the road, we take them out. If somebody wants their tree out because they don't like leaves, we do not do that.
Or it's buffalo on the side.
Yep.
So it could vary from year to year.
Yep. So basically, we have a list to start with for next year. That's called our LIN list, later inspection needed. It's on our radar, but our tree removal is strictly financially driven. So if we have,
There's enough.
yeah,
You could put $250,000 in there and say, I still want more.
absolutely.
So I mean, again, that's one of those ones we're behind.
Yep.
I don't know, how do you fix it?
Yep.
Take $10,000 away.
Right.
I know, you got those trees that have that disease or whatever there. Yeah.
Take
Mike,
elm
yeah.
trees, isn't there elm trees? Is that
Yeah,
a
problem?
problem?
There's a bug, I think there's two of them.
Same with the blue spruce.
Yeah.
Wasn't Mike Dexter supposed to get a list of what he's-
Ash trees, I think
Yeah.
he has that.
Okay.
Yep. We luckily, we don't have as many ash trees as other communities.
Yeah.
But we do have.
Yep.
Yeah, one of those.
Yep.
But again, I don't, it's hard to, I keep thinking back, some of these areas we need to address, that's why we got that ARPA money to kind of go through the whole budget together and see what the wants and needs are. And then
Sure.
go back to the department heads and say what they need and want, and then how you do that, if it's something hard to use that for removal of trees, but at some point, we gotta get ahead of something here, I feel like. I don't have, I did again. Have solutions for that.
Is there any other traffic, public safety type? The other stuff is pretty similar. It's doable, it's flexible.
Motion to accept. Carpenter.
Second.
Now, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
The next one, DPW related, probably going to be 5010. Obviously, you folks know trash right off the bat. We're overhauling our program for trash collection. So it looks like department mayor, we just haven't plugged any numbers in there yet because we're really unsure of those funding thresholds or what's going to be needed. It starts with expenditures. Revenues. Yep, arterial agreement stays the same in New York State. Yep. Personal services line seem to match. Yeah, so 5010, I think the only one notable here is the 5010-5405, which is operating equipment, consumables, materials. I think that looks like 2022 was 160. I think the mayor's proposed is 80. And basically, I think that my notes here, this budget line is saved for the end of the year. Last year, we had 110 invoices that were paid from November through the end of December, for all sorts of items that I think just those 110 invoices were almost $70,000. Basically, when our other 405 lines are tapped out, we save this one till the end of the year so that we make sure that we have enough in the coffers to cover our costs. I think that we could, what was it that we said?
Originally, we had 123.
Yep.
We backed it off to.
But that's gonna be for various stuff, whether it's pieces of equipment or repairs or parts to repair equipment or items that we need that we wait till the end of the year for. To go from 160 to 80. Like we were gonna buy, the both loaders need clam buckets. That was gonna come up. Yeah.
So you were allotted 160, so you should still have some money left based on that 2022 budget.
We do.
Okay.
Yep.
How much do you have left?
80,000.
80,000?
There's 80,000 right now, again. That's left, and that, again, that's where I come up with the numbers. So
Right.
It was 80,000, 96,000, you know.
You have to get to the end of the year. with
Yes.
That 80,000. So it's
Yeah.
not like, oh, here's 80,000.
No, right,
Yeah.
that's what's left.
They
Yeah.
have to get through the rest of the year with it.
And we did look
They
at last.
spent 58,000 last, so year to date, plus the 80, so then it's just.
Yeah, so last year.
Split
I
the
think we-
difference between the 80 and saying there's 40 left. But you know, they're saying they could do it for 100,
Yeah,
you know, and so I would add 20,000 back. The budget, if that's
On top of the 80.
on top of the 80 that I have.
yeah, so it'd be
You'd have to
100
use-
instead of 160.
Yeah.
We could probably work with that.
And then the tools and equipment, that's a new line. The 36,200
That's for leases,
leases.
our vehicle leases. Yep, we just put a new line in there because previously the leases came out of, was it that budget line? Okay, so that was 160, which included $36,000 for lease vehicles. We moved that into its own line, so it was just easier for our gatekeeper to track that all our lease vehicles come out of this budget. So we already reduced that from 160 to 123. Right,
But you still have money. You still have 36,000.
yes, yes, yep.
Yeah, again, my thought process there, again, those two together, that's 126.
Right, yep.
But again, going on past years, we never went over 100.
100 would actually be pretty adequate.
So that's.
Yep.
That's why I don't see that. Knowing the leases are taken out of it. So last year was, I'm sorry. This year was the first year of leases, so that hasn't been in previous.
Yes,
So we were targeting.
Yep.
100,000.
that's doable.
Yeah, I was gonna say that.
Something that came out of this morning's meeting is that a lot of these titles don't really give you justice as to what these items are. So the mayor's thought was that let's get through this year's budget with the numbers.
Yep.
Then we're gonna go back through and look at these titles.
Yep.
So they're more clear to council when we review these. So we have a better idea of what these
Yep.
contain.
I have a budget, prefix and suffix spreadsheet. I know what they are, but that's just because I
Yeah.
look at them all the time. The wording, you are correct, the wording, okay, instead of operating equipment, that's fuel. It's for operating equipment, but it should be just titled fuel
Yeah.
or fluids, because we buy oil out of there and we buy DEF fluid and we buy.
Antifreeze.
Right,
Yeah.
I know 401 is fuel
Yeah.
and that operating equipment means the means to operate equipment.
Yeah.
But somebody else looks at it and thinks it's rolling stock equipment, and that's not what it's for.
Then you get to those ones that say office supply or equipment over 5,000 or under 5,000.
Yes.
Just silliness.
Yep.
But
You're
again, there's too many shell games, and I'm just trying to eliminate that right now.
Yep.
Get it better next time.
The other thing that I want to point out too, and it's neither here nor there, it's 6 of one and half a dozen of another, is that what we did this year opposed to years in the past is we tried to, if you can look at the historic data on a lot of these lines, it will tell you something.
Mhm.
Some of them, like that one, where we're moving lease vehicles out of a line, creating its own line, it doesn't look correct because we're taking something out of somewhere else and trying to section it off. Or we're adding, when we get to the water, there was Munis being taken out of 5 different budget lines. Well, there's a big increase in one line because now we're taking it all out of one. It looks like that budget line's going up 50 grand, when it's not. We're poaching 4 different budget lines and making one. That's exactly.
But a couple changes like this, an explanation that makes
Yep.
sense. And what we-
Yep.
So 20,000 would get you to 100,000.
Would be fine.
So then the question there, to handle that, do we have, does someone want to make a motion to add the 20,000, or do you want to wait and see when it gets to that point?
So you're saying they could come back and ask for
I've
that?
said that for everything.
Right.
You
I
know,
think-
they have an engine blow up, they're not planning on that. They're gonna have that motor down, we can't not let them happen. They have their everyday stuff like their clam shells and, whatever. That's, you gotta trust that judgment, I get that. Again, we can get it to restrain and we try to do the best we can, and if we can't make it happen, then we.
Would it make more sense to have the 20,000 there?
Give it to you
What kind of
now.
questions is that?
Well, I know, but I mean, as opposed to you having to come and beg for the 20,000 later.
Are you sure? you-
We're not gonna make it.
No, I
But
know.
again, he uses it at the end of the year to see where everything's at.
Yeah,
It's
I would wait.
Catch all to the end of the year. That's the only thing.
I would wait.
I don't think that this budget line is gonna be. Well, we wouldn't know till really the end of this time next
Started
year.
like the fourth quarter.
Yes.
when
Yes.
We would really have to look at it hard,
There's
see
a
what we
couple,
needed.
there's a couple of these other budget lines that we'll get to that I think are much more important than having an extra 20 grand in this one. As my mom used to say, is that the hill you want to die on? This isn't it.
Okay.
Okay.
But I don't want to
Sure.
it's not the intent.
Right.
And again, the council's all majority here, I think we're all trying to state that
Absolutely.
if we could squeeze it within that, awesome.
Yeah, we'll give it a
And
shot.
again, the hypocrite, again, we gotta keep improving our rolling stock too. You guys' decision, this is out of my budget if you want to.
Yeah.
Well,
Oh,
On the
yeah.
20,000. Yeah. So I'll make,
It's,
are we ready for a motion?
Yeah.
I'll make a motion to accept the budget.
I'll
as
second
presented.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Okay. Then the next one is 5110.
Yeah. Maintenance.
There was a question that was brought up today, first budget line, the 51000 personal services. Mayor, I found where we got we had documentation where we got that 902, some help. The difference. We have every employee we have broken down with their hourly rate, including longevity, including 1 week of vacation payout, even though they're contractually open to paying or getting paid for 2. We only do half of it. The clothing and boots does not come out of this line. That equals with 2 part-time summer help for next season, 902, 310.40. I think there was a question of the personal services of $20,000. The summer help comes to 21,120.
Yeah, again, the reason I was looking at that today is because of that other error for the $100,000 in the salt budget. And I was trying to look at that number, and I was looking at the comparisons in years past.
Yep.
And then looking at what the increase is, because this is the last year of the contract, at 40 cents an hour for the employees.
Yep.
Just looking at what was left and what was there, and we're pulling the overtime from 2022 revised, the overtime's being yanked out of there, which is probably going to be short. Understand? So like in 2022, it was 860,700.
Yep.
And once we pull the overtime out, my rough estimation, we're going to be 20 to $28,000 short by the end of the year, just rolling out estimated what I, just trying to project overtime. So we're going to be short there. So I mean, pulling that down and now, and again, I don't want to get into those lines ever being short, because that's why we try to leave those along, those are easy enough to project. And with that longevity and vacation. Just, my point was that in the conversation was that 2022, we basically covered that within $28,000. The increase with the 40 cents for the employees is $8,800. We add that to the and I don't come up with a 94, especially when we pull the 45. However, I'm not gonna- moving on. I was just looking for $100,000.
Yeah. Okay. So
We jump down to, under snow and ice, 540, 500. Pulling $165,000 out of snow and ice.
yeah,
Can you explain?
Here's that. 274, that's the one I said. So there was a typo when she rented that it should have been $175,000. She put $75,000. Significant error there.
So at the-
So it should have read $175,000. That's why I was looking for $100,000.
Yeah. So still cutting at 65,000, where,
170, yeah.
I mean, 65,000 is still coming off of there.
Yeah, and again,
What's the impact of that gonna be next?
that budget line is specific for 2 basic items, salt and patch. Interrelated, they're not hot mix, cold patch. Cold patch is $107 a ton, and salt went, okay, so that was last year. Salt went up $8.50. So it's, you want to talk about salt because you knew the OGS stuff and our obligated thresholds.
Yep. So for our salt, we contract with OGS. We have to give them an estimated quantity of what we use. For numerous years, you've used submitted for 3,000 tons
Prior to the season.
April each year. So snow and ice for the state runs September to August is how they run. So we submit for 3,000 ton. They let us know what the bid price is. And then we are obligated to pay order 70% of it. So it's 2,100 ton that we have to order from OGS. So
In order to be put on for that price and the rotation for deliveries.
correct. We've had no issues meeting that 2,100. I think last year we ended up using
So somewhere around 2,400 to 2,600 ton of salt. Of course, that's gonna vary each year depending on weather.
It's going up 850, so there's a little bit of an increase.
So, you know, we said 240 again, and again, that's less salt we can buy because of the increase and less patch, because there's probably gonna be an increase in cold patch also. So that's kind of why we wanted to at least stay at that 240 rather than drop down to 175.
But you've already put in last April, like you said, you paid this year, correct? Ordered it last April.
We submit it to the state so they know how much each municipality needs. So then they can contact their salt providers and get that amount in production.
So it's earmarked.
Is this covered or obligated costs?
Say,
I think it was $129,000 would be 2,100 tons.
That's just the salt.
just the salt.
And you used another 3,000 on top of it.
No.
Last year.
Another-
I thought you went 21 or 24.
Right, that's only like 300.
Oh, yeah. That's why I have to.
It's tough because unfortunately we have 2 winters. We have November, December, then the budget year flips over, then you have January, February, March. So you're May, I don't know. So sometimes when you look at what's still in the coffers, you think, hey, you know, we're fine because there's 75 grand in there. Well, we more than likely will use that, and maybe not that much, but at least, I don't want to say 40 or 50 grand in the next couple months before.
Yes, I think last year it was, we purchased, it was $40,000 between November and December.
Thanksgiving
And I thought, like, there's $105,000 right now in that account left from last year, and they run just around, right around 200,000 previous year, recognize the increase. But with that 100,000, I think that would get us up to that amount. You know, there's $100,000 left this year. Look at the forecast and hedging my bets this winter.
Sure.
This winter is not coming. Well, until the end of the year.
Right,
Right.
Then we still, then we'll have 175 plus the, let's use 50. I mean, still at 50, we're still at your 240.
right.
Yes.
That's where I was at.
So
So 175 plus the, you know, they use half of what's left. That's kind of what I did for, you know, 150, and that puts us.
So my question is, if we come back and you have to say, look, does it cost us a lot more? We didn't estimate that. in the
if
first
you-
place?
Go over your 3,000 that you projected, and then there is an additional cost on top of that. I'm not sure what the additional cost is.
And then,
What the bid is at that time, right? You'd have to go into the next bid, right?
There's a percentage, and I'm not sure what that is right now.
and do you go like at the bottom of the rotation list?
No,
Oh, that's good.
But this wouldn't cause you to. This wouldn't cause you to not put in for the same amount of salt.
Yeah, that's already been done.
yes, that's already been done.
Yeah.
I will say,
75,000 a work.
I saw it when I was with the county, that happened one year. They didn't submit enough. And then therefore, we're starting to see the back of barn, which is, you don't want to see that in February. So
Yeah,
we
I can
went,
tell you what year that was. It cost you a lot of money.
it did.
A lot of money. That was 2000.
Didn't you end up borrowing salt, right? Or did we purchase it? from
Well,
someone
no,
else?
we still could purchase it, but
Yeah.
it was at an additional cost.
That's why it went up 40-some% that year. in the cost range.
No, we had that late storm in April. Everyone thought that spring was just over the horizon.
Yeah.
Yeah. it was
A lot of
it was
municipalities didn't have all their plow equipment.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
I don't know, Farmers Almanac is saying we're gonna have a winter. We're not sure when it's gonna start. But we're gonna get
Could we give some of the 65,000 back? Now,
Well, we have to give them 100,000.
well, yeah,
We make it 175,000,
right,
and then,
it would still be 65,000 less,
then what they're asking.
right? So
What,
could we
what
give
is
part of that?
$25,000 less than what's been used? Plus you got the increase, so I don't know that their 240 isn't out of line, but I'm just saying there's $100,000 left in that account now. From now to the end of the year. Okay, so we use half of it, let's just say.
Yeah. We'll probably use half of it.
Let's say use half of it, at least 50,000, so we add the 50,000 to 175.
I'm fine with that.
And if we go more than that, we need to do that.
And
Yeah, we gotta put the $100,000 back, so when the motion's
Absolutely.
made, we gotta add $100,000 to our budget.
Okay.
We just gotta remember, there's gotta be enough for next November, December.
And if it is, we're not,
I know.
Yeah.
like, I said the other meeting today, ultimately, don't run the trucks.
Okay.
Don't use the salt, and we won't have a fuel problem, and we won't have a salt. problem. I don't understand. And I'll call a state of emergency, then people can't go to work, and then they can't pay their taxes, and we'll fix it all.
And when the potholes get big enough so cars fall in.
Then we won't get potholes, because they won't drive in.
There's no
Oh, that's
salt
right.
going down.
Because they're not running the road.
No salt going down, no potholes.
Yeah,
That's
we'll
right.
do it.
And again, a hypocrite, I'm gonna tell you some holes that we fixed already.
And I think that was the big one, the last one for W. This one.
Yeah, we should bring that up.
There's one other line, and it's the Public Works Maintenance 5110, 5408.
You have a line number on the left, Nick.
Which one here? Oh, sorry. 5175. 358. Sorry. Yeah.
358. Same stuff, same stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
And historically, what we've done is this is a portion of contractual items, safety stuff, safety supplies, vests, hard hats, safety glasses, ear protection. And also, I believe we wanted to put meal reimbursement.
Meal
in there.
reimbursement comes out of it. yes.
Yeah.
Where is that currently?
I believe it's in one of the personal services lines.
That thing go down 5,000.
I don't think that, well, it wouldn't be 5,000 because the safety equipment and stuff like that is not in your personal service line, just your meal replacement, right, or meal money would be.
So you want to take 5,000 out of the meal, out of personal services line, put it in this line.
No, we're adding $5,000 because we're taking the meal reimbursements out of a different budget line.
Right, right.
I believe that the personal services 5110, I'll give you the number. No. It's the 902-310, which is the 350, which became to 902-310 with, I believe,
I don't think the meal reimbursement comes out.
well, that's for the clothing
But
and
that's
stuff.
not, that's she's just. Okay. Okay. That doesn't include that.
Right, that's my point. It's right here.
So,
I'm still confused.
so it was taken out, but it's not reflected, so it's not in another budget line. It's- Put it here, but it
Yes.
wasn't taken out of one of these others. It used to be housed in one of these others, but it's not. in
Yes,
another.
I don't know that that was ever budgeted for in the first place.
Where-
They took it out of personal services.
I'm still confused.
There's always been a meal, but
Absolutely.
yeah. Where that money came out of is speculation right now.
Where that money came out of was the personal services budget.
Okay.
So
So,
my-
you- go ahead.
Yeah, so from 2021, you would either take it out of the 5110-5104 or the 5110-1000, which is 781 and 74. Okay, what's your question?
It's the same question. So these numbers don't reflect, correct me if I'm wrong, don't reflect taking the $5,000 out.
No,
Okay,
because in 2022, they weren't in there. In 2021, I believe they were in there. In 2022, they were not. 2022, you can see it's just a straight 860, 700.
Yeah, how did you pay for your service?
2022, I believe it comes out of the A5110-1000.
the 860,000.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. So 860,000 would be healthy enough for your payroll and your meals. So basically from 2023, that's only an addition of $40,000 for all your contractual items from 860 to 902. Which is exactly what the personnel costs are. Hourly rate, vacation payout, longevity.
So, yeah, and let me just help Nick out here a little bit. Both in years 2020 and 2021, it's personal services line we're under, because they must have pushed other things under.
Absolutely. You got 734
So,
in
I mean, it was
2020.
in a negative.
Yeah,
So
Yep. We're just accounting for it in a different budget line.
so they were in the negative.
Well, put it to you this way, we're accounting for a period.
2020, 2021 were wrong, negative. I don't, 2022 is not finished yet, but we do have a plus there, remember I talked about. So I think it'll be covered this
Yeah.
year. That was my question before.
Yeah.
It's covered this year.
And
as
this is
well.
Right, right.
Yes, that's also with an additional employee, and that 10.5 from 2022, I believe is exactly their clothing and boot allowance from this year.
It's been right on every year.
Yes.
If I go back in
Yep.
history since 2016, it's the same, it's never changed. Like some of those concern me when they're exactly right. Right on.
No change.
You get a $56,000, $50 thing, it's exactly that.
Yep.
Those are the ones I think are the high shelves.
So we need to add back in that 53.
In the 5110-548. Diagram. Yeah. I think that's pretty much it for items from DPW budget that we have questions on or concerns about.
So you're gonna come back. You saw it.
Right.
You're gonna come
No,
back
no,
and look at your equipment.
We just keep
You're
them
not
on.
using contract. Right. No, but if they're happy with the 100,000 that we're putting in,
Yes.
but we're gonna add in 55, I would like to motion that we add in 5,300. Pardon?
$5,300 for the bills.
Yeah.
She said she wants to add it.
But if I can, $5,300.
What
No,
line?
5110-5408.
Number 358.
358. Motion to add
$5,300 to cover the needs. Five,
5,300.
4,000.
Otherwise, we're gonna be 600. We want 4,300, right?
Want it to be 15,200.
So it's 10,500 right now.
4,700. Oh, I see. I
4,700.
subtracted my 200 from the wrong side. Thank you. 4,700.
Making it easy, Tony.
So that's a 2, right?
Dessert.
So it should be 8, right?
4,000.
Yeah, we had 53 on top of 10.5.
You made the motion, okay? Just- Tom, how much are we talking about?
4,700. Yeah, if
That's
you had,
the difference.
if you had 5,300 to the 10,500,
It's clear that I
that's
got that.
15,800.
Right, so we're only going 4,700. 4,700, thanks. Okay, you can make the motion.
So a
Yes.
motion to add 4,700 to that budget line, 358, I'm gonna call it. I'm gonna read that budget line.
Budget line
Uh,
85110540,800.
Correct.
Yes.
And we're gonna add 4,700. We have a motion by Ms. Selman. Anybody have a second? Mr. Carpenter? Yes. All those in favor?
Aye.
So then we'll adopt.
I'm not.
Okay.
Wait, we also have, you said we need to put 100,000 back into 374. See, this is the- Mayor,
Yeah.
did
Yes.
374.
Yep, I was just gonna do the maintenance budget, but okay, we can do it all together if you want.
Yeah, the mayor indicated that was a typo.
Right,
So we
But
have to,
let's close out that section,
okay.
make a motion to accept with that change.
we can do the rest of, you're saying, we can do the rest of the budget, right? Is that what we're
Do
talking
you
about?
want DPW?
Okay.
All right, so if you want to recant your motion to say, we're gonna add 4,700 to line 5,4800, and then add 100,000 to A5142.
Yes.
540500.
Yes.
Andy?
Yeah.
You get that? It's just, it's 374 and then number
374.
we're adding 100,000 to that. So that's, Ms. Selman's motion. You still want to have that, Mr. Carpenter? We got that second. Any questions or discussions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I was supposed to add.
But yes, I'm 100,000.
Anything else that any other discussions that we should have for equipment, buildings, overview for next year that we can think of? We're talking, I don't know how you made out today, I forget that. Did you have a meeting with the guys, or it was yesterday, I'm sorry. And we asked, would they come over to look at the Parker School? And look at mothballing that, and just have that discussion with anybody to see what those costs, or what that would look like, taking that.
You know, Jim Crow talked with CNS. There's an appointment set up, and I'm not sure. the date.
We'll follow up with that. And then we'll leave this boiler on. No union grievance, please.
Let's do a motion on the DPW garage.
Well, that motion that was made, and correct me if I'm wrong, that was for maintenance, garage, and ice, snow and ice.
Yes.
Or it was or actually the rest of the entire, it was the entire DPW budget, because we did we just got to do the water, right? That one we got left. So that was for the rest of the,
Okay.
because the other ones are not separated, so safety is, building and grounds is all one. Okay. All right, where are we at here? Where's the plan?
Well,
FX, with the frozen border,
it should be 550, right?
Page 12.
Or I'm sorry, back up. We have 529, so page 12. Hopefully you brought your water rate sheet, because I don't have that. I'm hoping we're gonna maybe want to talk about that. I think so, yeah. So let's start, if you don't mind, Nick.
Sure.
Well, up top, we have the water meter sales. Now, unless we raise our rates. I can talk about that further than that. Those are where the revenues came from. Really. It raised the sprinkler fees. Anticipation of doing something with those rates. So that was the revenues, and then the personal services, I just want to clarify a couple things there on those. Because we do have that one vacancy, I think, what did you? Or something? That position in there, the one downstairs, which is now current for us. That position actually budgeted for in here.
Finance.
No, I know she's being paid in finance, but was that left in there? Because I hadn't read your notes on one of your things and it said, was that a question that, should that be there? Is that what you're asking? Is that what that was?
I believe that the 100.
Right, that's it.
Margaret's not
That's
in here.
right. That's what I was at, because your note said something
Right.
plus Margaret. And I didn't see it in there, so I didn't know if that was there. So that position is not anticipated on being filled by that, it would stay as.
Yep, so I believe the 143 is just Matt and the full-time clerical, position which was held by Stephanie.
Fair enough.
I don't know if you folks have any questions. I guess the big one for us that, Mr. Mayor, did you figure out the,
Yeah, the munis was in double put in by Mr. Stathis. He was asking you to do 50, but it's still is.
okay, so we can take that out. So
That
perfect.
was a big one. So, but realistically, at some, we need to keep we need to do it we need to do it right next year. I don't want to go back and change the whole budget. But that's cut on mine, so let's just leave it at that.
Yeah.
Next year we should go back to it, because,
Okay,
but that's one of those things where we took the money from the water when we take the billing.
Yeah.
Aspect of it.
Yep.
Then that's part of that money. How's that? Fair enough.
just for now. Yes, yep. That was for the 8310-5-40301, but Katie had a question because it was originally $450. We asked for $13,000 because we were looking for a GIS handheld unit to basically plot water system elements. We have one, but it's obsolete.
And again, that's one of the ones I was thinking we go back to the other funds to get.
Yep.
Because there's a couple, I think there's a couple equipment that needed over in Waterworks and a couple in DPW that was like, we tried to go into that.
Yep.
And then the other one was the testing, which is sample testing, which I guess there's some increase that might be needed there.
Yep.
And again, hopefully there's encumbrances, if not, back to us.
Okay.
But we anticipate that that'll be
Yeah.
higher.
If it's $3,000, we'll
Right.
just come back and say, yeah, testing is a little bit more.
Right, but
That's
it
fine.
wasn't that they weren't trying to. do it.
Yep.
Right, right.
That meter, I was watching the guys place the one of the laterals on my street.
Yep.
And apparently they had to use that meter to locate the line, but I guess they're about something like a foot off or something.
Yeah.
That sound about right?
Yeah.
That You're not always dead on?
No.
Yeah.
I think it's not big safe anymore. Is it? You dig lets you be 2 feet on each side.
Of their mark.
Yep.
So. But they were probably using the detector that they were trying to use.
Yeah.
I think everything else in 8310.
Physicals,
Sorry, what'd you say?
employee physicals. That's had 120, it's what you had this year. Everything airs, it's just $120.
I gave it to him in here.
Not really.
Not really there. I'm just- I didn't take it away there.
Is it-
54803.
Yeah.
Yeah, line
Do they
562.
have-
If it's a contractual thing, you don't even have to do it.
It's,
I don't have it. I don't have it.
Yeah.
I didn't have it as a hit. That's why I took it out.
so,
So they must have been drawn out of somewhere else.
yeah, and
Okay.
and typically, they do have to have a CDL license for the job. But we don't typically pay for the physicals because we require them to have a Class B
Well, no.
restricted, they don't need the DOT physical.
Right, municipalities are exempt from
Yes.
DOT physical.
So that's fine not being in there because we don't require it.
So at some point, there's nothing, no big changes there. At some point, when we do something with the water rates.
Yeah.
Ultimately, like we said before in the wastewater last night, we need to get away from robbing that and make it really run itself. It's probably not appropriate. If we need to make changes, if somebody want to make significant changes here, then we're gonna have to do it with rates. It's a separate fund. This is its own specific fund. So you can talk about the impact of what the rates would mean. I think Nick, you did that comparison with other municipalities, just give them the option.
Yep.
To discuss it.
And I can send this, I have a lot of water rate information here. I could send this to you folks. Basically, if you look at where we rate with other communities, I mean, of equal size, some have a college, some don't, some have a little bit more population, some a little less, but you know, you have Amsterdam, Auburn, Brockport, Batavia, Canton, Dayglow, Geneva, Lockport, and Oneonta, Forney. We tried to look at communities about our size, what they should, what their rates are for water. I think we're pretty competitive. We're definitely not the highest. We're in the middle to cheap end for water. Amsterdam, I'm going residential per unit. Theirs is 340. Ours is 342. Auburn is 335. Ours is 342. Brockport is 390. Ours is 342. Outside the village, theirs is 503 a unit. Ours is 342. Batavia, 441. Ours is 342. Canandaigua, 264. So they're a little cheaper than us. Geneva, 478. A lot more expensive than us. Lockport, 340. Pretty much right in line.
It's only
Oneonta is weird because they don't break it out per gallon or per unit, it's just by quarter. $164 a quarter. Yeah. Which that seems, for our minimal user, what'd you say again? Okay. Yeah, so theirs is double. Yep,
So when was the last time you raised rates?
good question. I was gonna look that up today.
I feel like that's been June sometimes.
Yeah, it wasn't super recent. It it wasn't like a decade ago, it was, I would say, 5 or 6 years ago or something like that.
Yeah, well,
I was just trying
to-
Yeah,
we usually try to raise water and sewer at the same time.
we did the exact opposite this past cycle because we didn't want to hit the constituents with the high water and the high sewer.
Definitely think it should be heavily next year.
Yep.
It's tight, they're right there. They're.
It's better to have an incremental bump up than wait so long that it
Agreed.
ends up being
Yep.
stickers.
And I could send you this stuff tonight or tomorrow, just those historic rates for other communities. We also have a breakdown that's pretty easy to read and understand. That is, hey, if you increase it 10 cents, 6 cents, or 3 cents, what it does to our bottom lines and revenues. Bottom line is if you increased it 10 cents, we make about $50,000 in revenue. If you increased it by 3 cents, you make about $17,000.
What's the difference to the minimum user?
That would have to be basically outlined. Sometimes you would, what did we say today? If you made it 6 cents, it was, did this calculation today, it was like $4 or $6 a quarter. Yeah, it was like $25 a year.
Yeah.
What's the minimum?
11 units. Yep, the unit is 750 gallons.
Yeah, it'd be nice to even raise the minimum. That sometimes I forget what the impact of that is.
Yep.
We really should work on that this year and
Yep.
come up with a better plan ahead of time next year.
We've got a lot of those figures and a lot of data.
We had a conversation not too long ago regarding some of the college water meters.
Yep.
Maybe we should make that a priority in 2023 to get those replaced and updated.
Absolutely.
That has been working. They've
been talking about
they've been
that.
working on that, getting
Yeah.
that done, that's been done. And, by the way, I sent you an email. with the Website, they've been hitting that pretty good this
Yeah.
scheduling. I mean, the first couple of days are already scheduled for next week, so I think the first 3 days. For the water replacement. that's what we're
We'll
doing.
be getting a letter.
Anybody who needs to get replaced gets a letter. I did see one person on it that was outside of the area. So I have to give them a call. They must have just read it. or
So,
something.
no, I want to send out something before saying,
I think letters just went out.
Yeah, they just went
It's
out.
4 and 5.
Yeah, and
It's 4 and 5.
okay, all right.
Yeah, so they got a letter. Some people had it done, correct? Or
What's
is
that?
nobody in Ward 4 and 5 had been done, or just, I think some, just the people who got letters were the ones that weren't done. So some were done.
Some were done.
So that's why we gotta be careful, so
Yeah.
not everybody.
Yep.
Everybody got a letter that needs to get it.
It's either, so I don't think, very little of them in Ward 5 have been done. Some of Ward 4 has been done. So the letters went out to people that obviously have not had it done.
They have been contacted, so if they do contact, just go to the water board website, do it that way, or call in and we can do it. It's working pretty good. So, yeah, it's awesome. It's
So
awesome.
that you can go online, schedule a time
It's been
slot,
great. So then
and then the
so I
water.
sent that, I didn't know who else to send it to. So I sent it to Matt.
We'll,
You guys can forward that.
yeah, we get it out to both Matt and Justin.
Yeah, I couldn't think of Justin's website or last name, so I couldn't see it. So I'll forward it, I'll keep up to date. Is it tomorrow? I'll send them the latest one and then should update on the weekend. They got Monday and Tuesday scheduled.
Yeah, and they can get started.
So that's a spike.
Stuff, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I.
Yeah.
so are we ready to move the,
You ready to move the water?
move the vote?
So, are we moving on water at FX 0,
Yeah, FX 0, oh, the FX accounts, yeah.
all the FX accounts, including allocate, unallocated insurance?
Yeah. Yeah, that's everything for the,
Okay, so all the way down to 617. with other funds.
You can leave that one off if you want.
So to line 616.
6, 22. No, it's up to 6. He wants that $800,000 back. But someday.
I'll make the motion.
No. So. Scott, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Is that it? I think that's it for you guys, right?
I hope so, yep. Thank you.
Yes.
Good Thank you very much.
Yeah.
So if you have any questions or something pops up, let us know. We'll try to get through it as painless as possible. Thank you for your time.
Thanks,
Yep,
guys.
thank you.
Thank you, appreciate it.
I'll reiterate real quick before we get our next guest here. Everybody got a copy of that in Cyril letter, right?
Yeah.
I just want to, I emailed it to everybody, so I just want to make sure everybody got it. Because there, if you get contacted, you'll expect that communication. So sometimes in our audit, we think that Mr. Michael is the.
Yeah.
All right, next we have Emily Roberts from SPCA. As soon as we get these gentlemen on here. Emily, how are you?
Thanks for sitting.
You can sit, if you want to sit down, that would be great. So I'll just give a little bit of background real quick. Ms. Roberts is new to the SPCA and has a great vision for the SPCA. I've met with her, I think she met with AJ a couple of times, and then I was brought into the meeting. We've met twice to discuss the SPCA contractor needs and costs. And I put in the budget a little bit more than what was last year, but Ms. Roberts would like to have more, so I figured rather than for me make that decision arbitrarily, I thought it'd be better to bring it to the full council, but give her the opportunity to communicate with all of us as a group, so that one person isn't making those decisions. So I think that would be helpful.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for introducing me. Like you said, I'm Emily Roberts. I was hired 2 years ago as the shelter manager. I was recently promoted to the executive director, and just like all of you, I'm trying to get my budget in order. Have some order. So I presented this letter with you, and I'll just go ahead and read it and questions at the end. The Portland County SPCA, we've experienced a substantial increase in activity. So we've asked for the city of Portland, along with all the other municipalities we serve, to adjust our funding appropriately. A couple of points I wanted to bring up. The average number of monthly dog control and humane law enforcement calls from the city of Portland has more than tripled in the last 3 years. In 2019, we were receiving an average of 24 calls per month from the city. And this year, we have been receiving 77 calls per month. In 2019, in total, the whole year, we received 292 calls. As of our September numbers, we are already at 673 calls from the city. On the shelter side of things, our animal intake has risen significantly in the last several years. 60% of the animals that the shelter gets in are strays or vacant animals. In 2018, our shelter took in 429 animals. And as of October of this year, we've taken 583. Of those 583, 40% of them were from the city of Portland. And with the implementation of the local law number 10, amendment of Article Section 74 related to number of animals permitted, which was enacted by you all on October 4th, we're going to be expected to perform more duties for the city of Portland with the same compensation. Our contract income, unfortunately, has not seen any significant increase in the past decade, and the disparity in contract income that can cover our personnel costs has been growing steadily. To continue operating, we have to compensate for this stagnation. If this trend were to continue, we would need to fundraise an additional $20,000 for every month of the next year, just to pay employees. For perspective, $20,000 is approximately what we spend on veterinary care every year. As mentioned to the mayor and to Mr. Meldrum in our previous meetings, in order to continue to serve our community and to remain a no-kill shelter, we respectfully wish to request an increase in this contract. In conjunction with the impact of inflation and state mandated minimum wage increases, we are asking for an increase of $120,250, which will bring our annual contract income to $201,402.85. With this most recent announcement of the mayor's 2023 tentative budget, this increase would account for approximately a little over 0.5% of the city's entire budget, where it's currently being proposed at 1.28%. I understand that this is a significant lump sum of money, and I understand that this might not be feasible. I'm willing to work with the city, and one thing I've suggested is a 3-year stepwise increase. This is something that we negotiated with the county for our contract, and we have agreed to give some additional $20,000 over the next 3 years. And it's the budgetary structure that I'm working with the village and town of Marathon to vote for a 3-year stepwise proposal. I'd like to thank you all tonight for having me here and for the support for our organization and its mission. I'd like to serve the citizens of the city of Portland. I think that we've been doing a really good job of it, and would like to continue. But we need, unfortunately, to see an increase in our contract in order to provide the same amount of services, the same quality of services. And what I've included as our data here, we have complaints by municipality. Those are the calls that we receive in. These can vary from anything to dog bites, dog boarding, animal neglect, animal cruelty, loose dogs, injured ill cats, hit by farm animals, dead animals, wildlife. Quite a variety of calls. And you can see in the last 3 years from the city, on average, they've tripled. And if you combine all of our municipalities' complaints, they've quadrupled. The next chart shows our animal intake by month over the last 5 years. In 8 of the, not actually, I've updated it to October, so in 9 of the last 10 months, we've broken records on the number of animals that have come into our shelter. In July, we hit 80 animals coming in a single month. Next graph shows our contract income. It shows all contract income as well as the city of Portland's contract income, which accounts for about 40–50% of our income, over personnel costs and over the rising cost of minimum wage. I've also included a hypothetical graph. Ideally, a pay structure should have been put in place for annual increases of a much smaller percentage. If they were to increase at a rate of about 8%, which would keep sort of in line with what minimum wages increased by over the last 10 years, it would have been at the $200,000 level that we're proposing. This last page of my data is just kind of a breakdown of the numbers and how I got them. Currently, the city of Portland is responsible for 44% of our contract income from all our municipalities. And then I also included the percent of animal intakes, the percent of complaints. That data is I think August. And it breaks down here why I'm asking for what percent just to cover the personnel costs. And then I received an email today asking to include our budgetary info from 2021 and 2022, so I've included that as well from our accountants in the back. I'm happy to take any questions that you have.
How many employees do you employ?
About 15 employees at the shelter.
Have you added staff?
Yes, we had to add staff to account for the number of calls and the number of animals that are getting there.
What's the breakdown part-time, full-time?
There are, let's see. It's probably about 2/3 are full-time and 1/3 is part-time.
So your total staff is again
15. So let's say 2.
The complaints by municipality, Homer is not on. That because they don't have any complaints.
Yep, they're just that happy.
Yeah, they're
No.
just, that's all.
The Homer Village in town is actually covered under Country Acres. So we don't serve the village of town of Homer or, for animal control.
What fundraisers do you do?
We do an annual appeal each year. We have a seasonal newsletter that goes out that brings in about $20,000 around Christmas time and around 10-15 regular seasons. We utilize social media. Our board has put on a couple of events. And then very little of our income comes from programs, so that would be adoptions, spending their fees, redemptions for lost pets. There are certain fees associated with that, but that's only about 10% of our budget.
You're still by appointment only, so you're not open all the time.
Yes, we're currently operating by appointment, but it's very flexible. We're just doing that so that we don't have to have staff there 24/7, pretty much, for anyone who walks in the door. We don't have the staff capabilities to have someone available at all times to show them the animals and to walk them to the shelter. Options.
Have volunteers, do you work with any volunteers?
We do. Volunteers have been few and far between. I recruited about 70, and most of them are SUNY Portland students who are either just there to get 10 hours of community service and they are soon again, or if they are really good volunteers, they come weekly until summer break or fall break if they are.
You guys must have discussed why the numbers have gone up so much. Why do you surmise they've gone up so much?
I think that the increase in personnel costs has been directly correlated with the increase in animals that have come in. And there have been, there's a study released last week by Shelter Animals Count, which is a nationwide organization. And they found that there were throughout the country, 7% more animals are coming into shelters than are moving shelters. And they suspect that the reason for this is because in 2020, there was a huge drop off in services, spay-neuter services particularly. There were approximately 3 million animals throughout the country that were supposed to get spayed and neutered but didn't, because they were only doing necessary surgeries, that would be considered accessory. And most people were more worried about themselves and their pets during COVID or and those 3 million animals not getting fixed in 2020, we're seeing the effects of that. Each cat goes on to have 6 more kittens. Each of those possesses more, and so on and so on. It's multiplied. It's a nationwide issue that we're seeing. And
I think, I know many people during COVID adopted animals. They were home. Are people returning the animals? Are people letting the animals go? I think that has anything to do with their increase.
I don't think that that has as much to do with the increase. There was certainly concern when the landlord restrictions were lifted and the eviction restrictions. People who couldn't be evicted during COVID were evicted for reasons with animals. They had pets that they didn't want to have. But there have been studies put out by the ASPCA that show that kind of the idea of animals returning en masse back to shelters after COVID is sort of just a catchy headline, nothing more. It's certainly certainly a newsworthy clickbait kind of story, but the research is not really showing that to be the case. The intakes were actually starting to return to normal levels, but what we've seen was intakes kept coming and not enough animals kept leaving. And I think that's probably because of the effects of COVID, because of inflation costs and people getting evicted, people losing their jobs, people don't have the ability to care for as many cats as they did pre-COVID. You know, they don't have the disposable income to afford.
You still utilize the building in the back?
The spay neuter building? Yes, we do. We, match demand for spay neuter services. In 2021, we started hosting 2 spay neuter clinics a month instead of the usual 1. And we're backlogged. We've had to stop taking applications because we're backlogged until 2024 with spay neuter applications.
We find that staff can take up some of that. Paying during.
They host 8 clinics a month over at SNAP. They certainly are more set up to do spay neuter services than we are, and they certainly serve population of stray and feral cats in the area. But I know that they still have a waiting list, even with 8 clinics a month. They're still like backlogged.
They are, I just visited them. Also spent 2 years of my weekends building that spay neuter center. I also sat on your board for over 5 years.
What is it?
Tom Michaels.
Very nice to meet you.
You still do your phonathons every year.
No, we haven't done the phone call since I've been there. I'm not sure what the last one was.
Probably after I left. That was a large moneymaker with you. That helped offset a lot of your costs. I'm surprised that you dropped that.
I'm not sure for the reasons behind that. but
You might want to look into that.
Certainly, yes.
I'm just wondering, it sounds like we need to do some public education about getting their cats and dogs neutered.
Certainly, yes. I imagine that would be hard to write into it. But I do know that, you know, as far as dog licenses go, you know, there is a discount for spaying your dogs getting licensed, so that's certainly an incentive.
But two people know it. Have you read with the local radio stations with the spot is a donation to you, and free spot, so you put something up, and the newspaper publish something.
Yeah, they used to do that too. And used to also host auctions in the summertime. People would bring in items that donated when you were auction off. You don't do that?
How active is your board?
They're pretty active.
Do they donate too?
Yes.
A supporter, this is just a help one.
Yes, I am. It is something that should have been kept up with over the years. I didn't think that there wasn't someone in my position as the executive director to really dive deep into this data and look at it and see that our contracting from every one of our municipalities was not being adjusted for wage increases and for inflation over the years. So while I understand that it is a big ask, you know, I'm hoping that you're willing to work with me in some way, so that we can continue to serve the city of Portland appropriate.
I'm gonna ask a tough question. You mentioned when you were reading the letter that you needed the money in order to maintain, not become a high kill shelter. So I'm gonna ask you this, if you don't get the extra money that you're asking for, you're not going to make this SPCA a kill shelter, are you?
Well, I would argue that nobody wants to be a shell shelter, you know. We certainly pride ourselves on being a no-kill shelter, but shelters who do have to make the decision to euthanize animals for genetic space restraints, they're not proud to be just shelters. It's more so shelters that have the resources to not have to euthanize and shelters that don't have those resources. And we've been very fortunate to not have to euthanize animals. We've implemented, you know, a great use of our foster program, which we greatly expanded over the last year. That has certainly helped. And we try our best to never fill the shelter to capacity so that there's always room for when the unexpected happens, when sick and injured cats straight dogs come in. We have not had to use nice return space, and it's not the direction that I'd like to go. If it were to come to that capacity sort of issue, we would probably have to stop taking in any owner surrendered animals, which account for about 40% of animals we take in. And we have a waiting list of dogs and cats waiting to come to the shelter. And if we were at capacity or we were approaching capacity, we would have to turn them all away until we were able to adopt out more animals so that we could get more. With adoption slowing down, with donations slowing down, we come to kind of a standstill.
But it goes back to what Tom was saying, there were different fundraisers and things in place that I think you really need to go back and review and see if you can implement them again, because they worked.
Our board worked very hard to implement those things. Disappointed that they were dropped. If I sound bitter, I am a little bit. I apologize for that. My heart has always been in that shelter. Also, we're going to give it 2 years of my life, weekends building that unit up there. But the fact that it looks like we have increased your budget over the years. Unfortunately, you know, it's maybe 2,000 here, 3,000 there, but we never received a full report either. I was the one that asked for your operating budget this year. This is the first year we've received anything like this.
Thank you.
To, you know, provide any data that I certainly can for you. And I'd just like to say that even though fundraising certainly changed, I don't know why certain fundraising aspects were dropped, like the option of the phone. But I do know that, for instance, when I got there as a young fresh face, I started raising money on social media, and I was told that you're not going to get any money from Facebook. But last year we got over $30,000 of Facebook donations alone.
That's quite a bit.
And what I've seen from when I started in 2020 and into 2021 was a 87% increase in the fund in donations. So I'm certainly working very hard to recognize the money. That's my background from the last shelter that I worked at for 3 years. Was fundraising, was outreach, social media events, and it's something that I'm working very hard on, but I just can't keep up.
I'm sure.
Yeah, I'm sorry to put you in such a, on here again. So again, that's why I brought everybody in. It's a really tough. I mean, and I donated a lot to the SPCA over the years to bring groups in there to help the facility stuff, even incidents this year, but yeah, on your financials, it doesn't show the revenue side. So that would be an important part to see where the revenues are coming from. And then, you know, you're asking us, I only see your expense side. This is last year. You're asking us to subsidize 30% of what your total budget is with what we're having. And even if we, and this is more for council too, if we divided it, you know, we're about $40,000 if we do that in 3 years, which is a proposal that I thought about, then that would increase our tax rate 0.22%, which brings us to an even 5% tax rate increase if we added this to without some other source of revenue generation to it. So I just want to put that, recognize that in our, you know, where that hits us as well, as you know what I mean. So that's why it was a tough decision to have. I mean, that's a big expense. So certainly we'd have to have long deliberation about it. Yeah, I mean, I did give it a slight tick upgrades to try to compensate for CPI, if you will, but still is not enough, obviously. And I think you're trying to catch it all up, just like we're trying to do with the rest of our stuff. Not that this isn't any, this is much more important than this building. You know, world, sure.
Yeah.
It's just heart wrenching to hear those stories, but I just like, we just really need to think about we need to discuss a good plan of attack on how to get, to help try to get that, or maybe answer those questions of, of that, I think Mr. Michael's questions of his revenue source, maybe he would be surprised to see that, your revenues were driven. Your donations are, what percentage of your revenues are that donations, or what could we help? I hate to be a person that says, not try to help be a solution to a problem instead of just giving a problem. So I'd like to try to help in any way we can, and try to make that happen. Obviously, the 200,000 is a big chunk. 100, the increase alone, 120,000 is like 2.5 times what we are, 1.5 times more than what we are already. So just trying to come up with just trying to start a dialogue with the council here and say, I just like it. It's hard. It's difficult. Even at a third,
If you look at this from the asset, and you really what they're asking for is an additional 3 times what we're already putting in, which sounds like a whole lot. If we spaced it out over 3 years, it's going to be about a $40,000 increase per year over 3 years. When you look at the whole thing, it doesn't look like it's that much when you talk percentages, because really it's 0.13% of the total bottom line to the city. However, it's still $120,000. So when you look at it all the way around like that, you see some figures where you go, oh, wow, we should just digest this and do it. That's the right thing to do. But you look at a 300% increase, look at, how it changes things, the math we did as far as getting us all the way to 5% on a tax increase. When you look at that, it's something that I think we need to weigh and we need to talk about. I am all for, if everything turns out that this is truly, if we see the revenue truly, my suggestion would be to space it out at least over 3 years. Potentially go a little longer and maybe a little more. But to try and play catch up all in 1 year is gonna be tough, because when you look at the numbers, we can throw the tiny percentage out there and go, oh, it's only 0.13%. However,
we have 2% tax.
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
Right. And
I'm trying to figure out how to come up with 127,000,
right.
whatever we just added.
And that's my point. It is a chunk.
You also have to look at how much, what the percentage of complaints come from Gulf City. So because
There's a
have
lot.
there are so many complaints from the city, we should be picking it. Making them work harder in the city than in the state.
And now comes the balancing act.
Who's surrendering animals? What they, is it only the people who can't keep up to their, recruiting, who's the demographic who's giving up their animals?
Right.
We have to.
That's what are the options? Owners does something.
So that's a big issue because we can't tax them.
Maybe it's just to create that. And I hope, again, it's a tough thing. I agree with everything else. But if you look at the expenditures, we're subsidizing 30% of all these expenditures. Where does that really get? I agree with your call. That doesn't make us right to provide investment. If I look at it, why I talk to the officers, it's like, to me, marathon should have a bigger, if they have one call in marathon, they pay about $2,500 a year marathon. If they drive to marathon, that officer's gonna be tied up for several hours, just in transit. If they have one call. By the time you drive out, it's about here, it's 20 minutes. 20 minute walk, and then you're still tied up here, they could probably hit 2 or 3 cuts like this. So I like to say, even though it's minimized, I mean, that's level of detail.
So what the mayor tried to mention was to raise 3%. We already had a tax cap of 2%. We have to meet what you were asking for. We have to raise taxes by 3%. 2% equates to somewhere around 50,000. I don't think there isn't a council member here that doesn't want to chip in and help you out. But if we had these numbers back in June, we might have been able to project some more money for you. But the fact that we're receiving these now at the 11th hour, this spreadsheet's has already gone out. If we were to take any money, I would look at the police budget, but we've already accepted that. That's how your agency used to be funded years ago. Without a police
Right.
budget.
I think I'm hearing from everybody, we don't want to give up. But
Right.
We all agree to it 100%, and maybe it's a spread over 5 years, and we come up with a way to do that. So I would say more than that, because we'll never get caught, right? But, and maybe first come to terms with the number, and then come to terms with a good anticipated way to do it. So, does that make sense?
Yes.
And with that said, and to make sure we don't lose that burner as just a flop. It's difficult, right? So we have difficult questions. That, I wouldn't think I would ask that one, but it's a good one. But I think if we make that a point, and I'll take whoever wants to be part of that discussionary points, part of this, but I'd like to take it to that level of saying, all right, you know, how, and we have, like, we're all in a tough thing. You just started, so this is why you couldn't get it out before this, and I understand that. And Mr. Biggest question is right, so, but I understand where you're coming from. And I don't think that it's necessarily time to give up. I don't think we can't necessarily do something in the budget year next year. We can always amend our budget as we go, right? So, but I think, you know, I'm sitting on financial, I'm just waiting for an audit to close for 2 years ago, let alone this year. And then, you know, there's been a lot of change, a lot. And trying to hit that ground with that dust is going to be important. So I don't want to lose sight of it, but I want to, if we can keep that dialogue, have that communication together to really kind of resolve that, to use that financial analysis to come to terms and say, you know, to me, I said, say 30% of your budget, you know what I mean? Not that it's not, that I give you $500,000, that's good, if it was mine, but, you know, but if it's, you come up with that percentage of value that we think is fair, a real formula, right? And where you came from and these different schemes, and something that was reasonable that we could maintain, so that in the future, this is an automatic continuum. So we can say to take that. I'm not trying to. If we can. But I don't know another way to address it really that easily. It's pretty complicated. So I don't think it's that much that it can't. However, does that help? So if we could make sure that we had something and we could set a deadline and say the first quarter, we would address it. We would put it on our agenda and have some kind of resolution that we concur, whoever else wants to volunteer to help, I appreciate it, to concur with something that makes sense, that you can address, that you can accept, that we can, that we would be able to manage, come up with a plan to manage. I just couldn't, I can't get through it that easily. You know, I did spend some time on that, as you know, and it was the second meeting, but with the ordinary budgetary constraints and all the other things that are going on, it's just really, I'm not spending time on some items that I should.
I understand that. I'm willing to work with City of Portland on where plan works best for both parties. I just wanted to say that I do have some data here, some income data. I have full year for 2020 and 2021, and our total income increased $553,000
21 to 22.
from 20 to 21. There was an increase of 153,000 in donations and fundraising
That's awesome.
That is good.
and services and fees.
As I said, I think that helps.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
This is January to September of this year versus January to September of last year. So it doesn't include end of year giving Christmas giving, which is our
Big.
biggest donation source by far, but it is already up this year compared to last at this time by $265,000.
That's your hard work.
Yes.
We'll patch in the back, but nobody else might not. But see, those are helpful too. 'Cause
Yeah.
So now it takes that onus off that, there's no effort. It's just easy to act. Never gonna make that acquisition. That's awesome. And that's,
Send this to each of us.
but I really appreciate it. I know it's hard for you. Did a great job of making this presentation. Certainly hurts you to all.
That page now.
Thank you so much, sir. I appreciate that.
And we'll make sure that happens too.
Please put me on whatever.
Okay. So Ms. Lane and I will be in touch and we'll get together. And have the- okay, with that. I thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you everybody for your time.
Thank you.
Consideration.
Once again, I want to apologize for my behavior. Hope to
Keep me a good-
overcome my bitterness, because we put a lot of things in place back when I was on that board. And I'm a little disappointed that some of them weren't followed.
He'd be a good resource for you.
And I always say that this, I'll take this one, Mr. Michaels, if you were in place, you should have made that automatic increase for the city.
Well.
Yeah, I didn't cross the bound. How's that?
Where you're at now, where we at now, around 80,000 a year?
Approximately.
We never, the city never even gave you that much back.
Recruiting more board members, so
Yeah.
if you're interested in coming back.
All right, here comes another zinger. Here we
There's new
go.
leadership in town, so.
Yeah.
Hey, I really appreciate your professionalism and your approach. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thanks, Emily.
Have a good night.
All right, so I think we went through all, everybody go through those other budget lines that we had real quick. I know we're past the time. and Deputy Chief has his wife as well. So does anybody have any questions on common council, mayor, the finance department? I mean, I don't want to necessarily approve all of them just yet, but we could go through some of them, maybe the city clerk, some of them that might be a little bit easier if you'd like, or we can deal with this next Wednesday if you want. You want to do that then? Okay, so what I'm going to do before now and next Wednesday, in my head, what, 127, wait, 124.7? It was there another 2,000 added? I'm just trying to think of what we added to the budget. So I got to try to figure out where that's, how that's going to look out. So it might be as, that, I don't know. So I have to figure that out. I'm going to try to come up with a way to do that without one of the budgets that we've already amended. Try to come up with a plan of that. If not, we'll have to adjust that. So I'll do that before the next meeting, and then I'll bring that up, and that'll be the other change. Is there anything else anybody else wants to see or information you would like to see for the next meeting on Wednesday? All right, so then we'll address those other random then, and then we'll put the, I'll try to make that adjustment, make the motion on that adjustment, and then we'll,
Let's
we
do
should be done.
let's do a motion.
Yeah, we'll do them all at that time. That's okay. I think we talked about
What did we budget this year for animal?
86.
It was 86, so we went up 3,000 from 83, something like that. Yeah.
So I think we'll just address it. So 6 o'clock on Wednesday. We'll address that. So that way we can get this out Thursday, even if everybody agrees to it. Put that as a closed agenda for public hearing. So you have to identify, you have to put notice on, right?
Yeah, so, Public hearing has been advertised for the show. And this proposed project available online. It's Thursday, Friday.
If we meet Wednesday, unless we need more time, I would think that.
Yeah, that way we can put it out as public. 5 days.
All right, I really appreciate you guys coming and doing it. I know it's difficult, but I think it gives you a better understanding of what's going on. Almost be nice to do it before you started, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, me too, right?
Next time I propose changes, I'll put my calculator.
Your what?
My
Oh,
calculator. so that I'm at-
that's okay.
Yeah.
I was trying, I thought I was on the wrong line. That's all. I wasn't challenging.